Okay, we're going to start from the beginning of Kosai, which is the second parsha, which we're going to read. If you walk in my statutes, that's mitzvosai tishmeru, and you retain my mitzvahs. Shmir is always you retain them. That's only through reviewing them. Vasisimosam. And because you have that level of retention, you will do them. What's mitzvah tishmeru? You know, the Chofetz Chaim writes in the third paragraph of the Shema, regarding which we discussed the mitzvah of tzitzis, it says, Uri'isim oso uzachartem, it's called mitzvah Hashem Elokechem. When you see the tzitzis, you remember the mitzvahs of Hashem. What does it mean you remember? Remember doesn't mean if I ask you a question and you're able to have recall immediately. Remember means, as he explains, means you will be cognizant. There will be a cognizance of the mitzvah. When you see it, it's not you just remember it. You'll be able to see its value, and therefore you'll be touched by it. Chofetz Chaim writes that if a person ever feels temptation in a certain area, whatever area of Torah may be, when you look at your tzitzis, because it brings about a level of reality, of cognizance of the mitzvah, that will actually diffuse the situation to be able to take control. Because urismos uzcharta, when you see it, uzcharta, you remember the mitzvah. So the Chofetz Chaim writes, you can only remember something that you studied. If you studied something, then you're able to remember it. But let's say you never studied that aspect of Torah, which the area of temptation that manifests itself. You can look at your tzitzis from now to forever, because the whole idea is urismos uzchartim. You will see the tzitzis and you will remember mitzvahs Hashem Elokechem. But you remember mitzvahs Hashem Elokechem. It's just not you remember you have an obligation. You'll remember, meaning you'll be cognizant of the reality of what is the basis for that obligation. And that itself, that level of cognizance will actually diffuse and minimize the temptation to be able to take control. So over here it says, if you follow my statutes, and you have a retention of those mitzvahs, like shmira. Person is a custodian. He's a shomer. A custodian is a shomer, meaning he has responsibility to watch over whatever may be. The mitzvahs, we have a responsibility to maintain them, meaning we review. You always have to review, because unless you review, you're not able to retain. And as a result of that, vasisimosam, and then you'll be able to actualize the mitzvahs. So we speak about three things in this puzzle. If you walk in my statutes, normally what do statutes mean? These are laws which are not really understood on a rational level. That's chukosai, but we'll see in a moment that's not what it's referring to over here. And you will review my mitzvos, vasisimosam, you will actualize them. Let's take a look at Rashi. Im chuksai telechu, yochel zekima mitzvos. Maybe chuksai telech means observance of the mitzvos. So he says, Kshu Omer in mitzvosai tishmeru. It can't be that, because it says, and you're going to observe my mitzvos. Harekim mitzvos omor. So the fulfilled mitzvos already is discussed later. Ha'amani mekayim in chuksai telechu. So what exactly is the Torah saying? You must walk in my statutes. Shetiyu amelim b'Torah, that you'll toil in Torah. The chuksai telechus, you have to toil. It's not enough just to study, but it's a level of application which is referred to as toiling. What is this all about? If you toil in my Torah and my mitzvahs, you'll be able to retain. Then you'll actually do them. You'll actualize them. We quoted them many times in Megillah. Mer says in Megillah regarding coming upon the truth of Torah. The Gemara says, Yogata motzosa tamin, that if a person toils for Torah and you came upon its truth, tamin, you believe that person. Lo yogato motzosa al tamin. But if you did not toil and you came upon the truth of Torah, don't believe that person. He may believe he came upon its truth, but he did not come upon its truth. There's a prerequisite to come upon the truth of Torah. It has to be predicated on amelus, yigiyah. You have to toil. You toil, you come upon its truth. You don't toil, you don't. And if a person says, yogativ lo motzosi, person says, I've toiled, and I still haven't come upon it. Al tamin, you don't believe that person. Because factually, if you toil sufficiently, you will come upon its truth. So what are we speaking about? We're not speaking about just understanding. Coming upon its truth. What's truth? Truth is something which you're able to internalize as realizing that it's the truth. You're touched by it. The only way you can be touched by the truth of Torah is when you come upon it, is only if you toil. If you don't toil, you don't come upon its truth. So therefore, there's a prerequisite. Im chusay telechu. A prerequisite, a precondition is imtu amelim b'Torah. You have to toil in Torah, because only then does God gift it to you. Now, the Gemara says in Yuma, it says there's a pasuk in Tehillim. It says Yiras Hashem hi otzari. The fear of God is the otzar, is the storage location for Torah itself. You have to have Torah has to be predicated on Yiras Shamayim. If you have Yiras Shamayim, that will allow you to have the storage location that God should gift you the Torah. So Rechaim Volozhin, we had studied this in Nefesh HaChaim, writes, you have a father who's very wealthy. He can give the son anything he wants. And the son asked the father for 100 bushels of wheat. So the father says to the son, and where are you going to store the bushels? He says, well, I'm going to put it out on the road because you realize I don't have a storage location. So the father says, you realize I'm happy to give you anything, but if you're putting it out on the road and the wagons are just going to run over it and people are going to trample it and the animals are going to actually defecate on it, what am I going to give it to you for? It's just destroying whatever I give you. If you have a location where to store it, where to preserve it, I'm happy to give you the 100 bushels of wheat or whatever you're asking for. The Torah, it's the ultimate. It's a gift. It's a gift. To come upon its truth is a gift. If a person doesn't have that Yiras Shamayim, you don't have fear of God, you will not treat that Torah properly. You will abuse it. You will disgrace it. So the only time a person merits or he's privileged that he should receive the gift of Torah, he has to have Yiras Shamayim. Because if you have fear of heaven, you're going to treat that Torah with the greatest level of reverence and respect and care that it's not going to be desecrated. Therefore, Hashem only gives that person the gift of Torah only if it's predicated on Yiras Hashem. And that's Yiras Hashem hi otzara. What is the otzar? What is the storage location for Torah? That's Yiras Hashem. That's how Rav Chaim Volozhin in Nefesh HaChaim explains the Gemara. So I'm saying, a person who toils, we only toil for something that we value. Something we don't value, we don't toil for. So therefore, what is the confirmation and the proof of concept if you toil? If you toil, that's a confirmation that you value it. Because if you didn't value it, you wouldn't toil. As a result of that, it's mitzvosai tishmeru. Then you're given that gift of clarity, and it becomes actualized in your mind. You're able to internalize it, and therefore it's mitzvosai tishmeru. Therefore, you retain it at a level that it becomes essential in your life. Once you have that level of internalization, becomes essential in your life, vasisim osam, then you're actually going to do the mitzvahs. But if it's only abstract intellectualism, and it's not a reality in your life, that it's not integrated in your being, then you're not doing the mitzvahs. I'll give you an example. Most people, if a person is not truly an observant Jew, where it's more than he does things because, as I'm explaining in a moment. For instance, you come upon a Jew and you say, do you believe in God? Yes. Would you steal? He says, never. Would you do anything dishonest? Lie? No, never. So I said, why? If you didn't believe in God, but just based on societal values, ethics and morals, would you steal? Would you live unethically, immorally? Even if you didn't believe in God. Person says, I would always be ethical and moral, whether I believe in God or not. But I believe in God. So you ask that person the question, so how does God, believing God, manifest itself in your life? Stealing ethically, morally, you'd be that ethical, moral person, even if you didn't believe in God. Because society dictates that you're supposed to be ethical, moral. That's social values, societal values. So tell me exactly, how does God play a role in your life? It has to play a role outside of societal values. Okay? So when we speak about that person, even if he didn't believe in God, he'd be ethical and moral. Why? Because since it's societal value, it becomes part and integral, and it's enmeshed in your being. I can't be different. I would never steal, I would never lie, I would never hurt a person. I would never kill. Would you never kill because God says you shouldn't kill? Or because you see killing is cruelty in the ultimate sense. But if the reason why you don't kill is because God says you don't kill, it takes on a whole different level. Because what is killing now? Euthanasia, is that killing? Aborting a fetus, is that killing? It's a whole different, it's unrelated to societal's understanding of what killing is not. So therefore, as a result of that, the believing God goes beyond what I feel. So if it's b'chukosai, a person says, it doesn't matter, why should it be considered killing? You know why? B'chukosai telechu, because that's the statute. God is the one who determines many things, so you can only internalize something, that it should become part of your being as societal values if you toil in Torah. If you toil in Torah, then even something that's beyond societal values, you're able to grasp and internalize to see its value because you sense its value. Once you sense its value, you're going to retain that. That becomes important. Once it becomes important and integral in your life, then you can do the mitzvahs.
Rabbi, I'm just trying to